Good Sunday morning to you. It's December 15th, 2024, and today we're going to take a relaxing journey, fingers crossed, through the setup for an accordion fold junk journal. Can we just take a moment to admire the organized chaos on my desk? I even put it in a fancy gold frame. I'm so proud of it. What's in the center of that desk, as messy as it looks, is only the stuff for today's project. There's nothing, taking up room from any other project. This is in preparation for Junk Journal January, and usually what I do is start my covers and then do everything in January. I'm not doing that this year. I'm doing it differently. And if you're new to Junk Journal January and you just want to get your toes wet, this might be the place for you to start. I'll give you more information on Junk Journal January near the end of the show. But for right now, let's get started. Now, I'll admit, for demonstration purposes, I've run ahead of the class and I've ripped actually 4x6 pieces of random scrap paper. And I'm going to put them together with other pieces of random scrap paper, as you will see. Just a little bit of double gluing. I always double glue. If you are new here, thank you for joining me. I hope that you find this interesting. If you're old here, you know all about my passion for double gluing. I don't trust wet glue because it bleeds through the paper, and I don't trust stick glue because it doesn't last. So I do both. And I can hear my blower motor on my heater. So I've turned the volume down. I can still hear it in my earphone. So I'm just going to mute this clip and speed it up. If you've never done a junk journal, you might be wondering how I determined the size of my pages to be 4x6. And in this instance, I just arbitrarily made it that size because I want to be able to use 3x5 file cards and some small letter size envelopes. And so I want the book to be relatively even in height and width. Sometimes when I do these kinds of things, I make the covers first. I have an idea for the cover, and the page size is determined by the cover size. But in this instance, all I am doing is using scrap strips of paper from other projects, like a piece of Scotch tape, to put all of these pieces end to end. And then where there's a break, where those paper Scotch tapes are, I'm going to fold them in an accordion size. A couple of these, like this lined paper, I had to glue together too to get some weight in the paper so that it would align a little bit better. So that's what I'm doing right here. You'll see later on that this book does not have perfectly lined pages, and I'm okay with that because it's a junk journal, and Junk Journal January is all about no rules. So when I would be making a junk journal for a different purpose, I would be measuring things down to the millimeter and lining things up and creasing folds like a mad woman. I don't have to do that here. I can just make this set of pages and not give too much technical thought to it. And when we start Junk Journal January, I will be able to concentrate on the prompts. You'll notice on the right, just like all of my videos, there's a list of tools and materials. And really, the only thing you need for if you want to make a base for your junk journal like this is some scrap paper, some glue, scissors, or a blade. And in my case, I didn't even use scissors or a blade that much in the cutting down of these pages. I just used my ruler and I tore my sheets. because I like that torn edge. And then optionally, if you want to go a little farther with your pages, you'll need some embellishments. But you can wait until January if you want to go along with this challenge for January. And you will also need some book boards or cereal boxes or something to make your covers out of. In my master junk journal playlist, as well as the Find Me Junk Journal playlist, I show you how to make book boards or book covers out of cereal boxes. It's my favorite thing to use. I hardly ever use um, book covers from books, that I've gotten at Salvation Army or wherever. I just, for some reason, I like making covers out of cereal boxes. I think maybe it's because I get to control exactly what it looks like and how big it is and so forth. You really don't need embellishments for just the page construction that we're doing in this episode. All your embellishments can be done from the prompt list for Junk Journal January. And I may do that. I may leave it all until January, and the challenge, it's called a challenge. It's not really a challenge in terms of competitiveness. It's a challenge to get you to do a page every day and be creative. There's no awards, there's no prizes, there's no rules, really. You can do 31 pages, one for every day of January, or you can combine some of the prompts to um, make a more thematic book. Now you can see that I have switched from those little paper strips to washi tape. I bought washi tape and I haven't done much junk journaling in 2024. And so it's just been sitting there, and I remembered, oh, I have washi tape, so let me use some washi tape. So it's a kind of a mix and match thing. And if I was short on my measurement, which I was because that piece of washi tape has labels that have cut points, I just covered the rest of it with a stamp, and I'll go back and wet glue that stamp down to the washi tape. So what kind of paper can you use? You can use newspaper if you find the comics section, or colored paper in the ad section, or just plain newsprint if you like the look of that. You can use the classified section of the newspaper if you like the look of that. You can use old book pages. I am alternating between um, heavier paper and some handmade paper that I made, oh gosh, a year and a half ago, and have not used yet. And so all of the pieces, I went through the whole album of handmade paper that's been sitting around, and all the pieces that weren't quite up to snuff, they were too thin or they had holes or what have you, I alternated them with things like book pages and dyed paper and um, some other kinds of scrap paper. And the reason I alternated the handmade paper with um, machine paper is because machine paper is thinner, as in the case of that lined paper, you saw me double it up. And my handmade paper is a little thicker. So at the place where my paper tape is or my washi tape is, the weight of the handmade paper will kind of deform the strip that's going to make up my pages a little bit. It'll put some torque on the pages and pull the pages out of alignment. So in order to sort of compensate for that, I'm doing things like this with the lined paper and gluing two pieces together. I didn't need to do that with book pages because book pages, at least the ones that I have, are a little heavier, and the difference in weight between the handmade paper and the book pages will not be as great. You can also use magazine paper if you don't mind the glossy um, surface. You can use rice paper, but I would double that up, or I would put that over another piece of paper. You can use parchment paper. You can use vellum. You can use scrapbook paper. Just about any kind of paper you can get your hands on, you can use for this kind of journal. And you don't have to do the page construction the way I'm doing it. In other words, you don't have to pre-cut everything. If you have an idea of what your book size will be, you can just collage in a strip different torn pieces of paper, and as long as your strip is taller than your finished book size, you can always cut those pages down or rip them down. I saw a really nice um, accordion fold base like this a couple of days ago where that's what she did. She just collaged paper down, and it turned out really, really nice, keeping in mind that you're going to have other things covering the pages. Let's talk about the prompt list for a minute while I finish getting my pages together and the glue dries. Every year, Meg Journals sponsors this challenge along with her partner, and I don't remember her partner's, Get Messy Art. That's who it is. Get Messy Art. I'll leave links to their channels in show notes for you. In order to get a copy of this prompt list, you'll have to go to Meg Journals and get it from the link in her description. As you can see, the prompts are numbered 1 through 31. The suggestion is you do one prompt per day. And as I pointed out before, you don't have to do that. So, for example, let me see, I can combine neutral, number 15, with, let's see, repeat, which is number 22, and I will have knocked out two of those prompts just by looking at my materials in a way to see how they fit into the prompts. So, neutral, most of my pages are khaki or craft paper or light dove gray and a couple of other tints, and I can check off repeat because I have repeated those colors throughout the book as my pages. But I can revisit repeat by putting pattern paper or repetitive stamps or a jelly plate print on one of the pages and have done that prompt twice. Keeping in mind, as I said before, there are no rules. Do 3 prompts on a page, do 1 prompt on a page. It's totally up to you. Now we're going to do the speed round of the other method to make these pages I told you about earlier. All I did was take 2 pieces of frog tape, and the outside edges, so the top and bottom, are 5 inches, which is 1 inch taller than my actual 4x6 book. So by giving myself an extra inch, I have plenty of room to paste down all of these pieces of collage, and I don't have to worry about making pages too short because I started out with a doubled over piece of craft paper in 4x6 format as my sort of starter piece. And yes, it will get a little wonky, but if you do it 1 inch taller than your finished page height, you should be just fine. We're going to speed through this because you get the idea. You're just pasting. I did mine from left to right because I'm right-handed, and we're just pasting pieces down to make sure that we cover a 4-inch high page height. Since my pages are 6 inches wide, I wanted to make a strip that was divisible by 6, and then I'll fold it, and you'll see that in a minute. I also want to point out that there are places where I added stuff on the back to be able to make up the difference in height. You'll see it in a moment. I also want to point out that it's worth noting that I gave very little thought to what I was doing. It was completely free form. I put elements where I needed them. I didn't give too much thought to color coordination or any of that jazz. I just made an approximately 4 to 5 inch tall strip that was divisible by 6, and you can see I hit the camera a couple of times, and I do apologize for that. There were a couple of times where I made use of straight sides to try and even things up, but pretty much I just ripped paper and pasted it down. Let's move forward a little bit to the point where I'm ready to trim and score this book. Every 6 inches, you can see on my desk, I have those tape marks still. So every 6 inches, I made a fold, and that will serve as my accordion, like the paper tape and washi tape served in the first version of this. I do want to caution you a little bit. It's a little tough sometimes where you've pasted 2 pieces of paper together on a place where you're going to fold. You may have to do a little re-gluing, or if the edge is messy where you're folding, you may have to cover that with something that will be flexible on the fold. So all I'm doing, like I said, is just making folds. I will have to fold some of these back to make the accordion zigzag, but that's something I'll do later on. We're going to speed ahead to where I do the trimming for the 4-inch height. In order to make this trimming go a little easier, I have not made a very long piece. I think this piece was maybe 25 inches wide or something like that. Could be a little less. I've forgotten now. And I'm just refolding to make sure that I have everything lined up on roughly the 6-inch mark for the 6-inch width. So in a minute, you'll see me make those cuts. I'm recreasing my final folds for the accordion. Everything lines up roughly to the 6-inch wide, and now I have to make the 4-inch cuts. So what I do is I turn the whole thing sideways so that it's 6 inches tall and 4 inches wide, and then I just use my straight edge and my blade. I line it up on my mat and cut off the excess. It's very, very easy. And if you are a brand new junk journaler and are getting your feet wet for the first time, this might be the easiest, frustration-free way for you to go. It's totally up to you how you do this, and you can either pre-cut and tape together, or you can do what I just did in this other demonstration. Both books will be combined so that I have both demonstrations in one book. And right here, I show you why I started out with a roughly 4x6 piece. That craft paper was my first piece for this freeform collage, so that I would have a good idea of where to make my cuts. And you can see there roughly 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch of extra scrap. I'm not saving this extra scrap because this book in Junk Journal January is meant to be a scrap buster for me. If you're brand new, you might want to keep your scraps and use those cutoffs as embellishments for clusters and that kind of thing. And at some point, I'll probably demonstrate a cluster as one of the prompts. Here I've just grabbed the previous demonstration, the first one we did, to kind of show how thick this book will be. There's still another element that I need to put in there, some stacked envelopes. So for the time being, I'm just sort of testing to see how they would fit together and where I might like to join them. But because there are no rules, further down the line, I may cut these books apart and rejoin them in different spots. And there I'm showing you where I could rejoin with washi tape or paper tape. The other element I'll be using for this is a stack of envelopes. I'm not going to do that one today, but I will show you in future where that stack of envelopes goes. All right, final step for the time being. I took a couple of box flaps from crackers and put them on the ends of the pages where the folds go, and then I put binder clips on to really train those folds that that's where they're supposed to be. And I'll set that aside for a day or two and just let it be. The purpose of doing that, like I said, is to train those folds, but the box flaps is to keep binder clips from putting big dents in the sides of my pages. It seems to work pretty well. No time for a fancy frame for this one, so I took a fake Polaroid because this is just one part of the book construction. The next show will be Christmas Day. For those of you who are spending Christmas by yourself, like I am, you'll have something to look forward to, and it most likely will be a cover construction so that on January 1st we are ready to go with a book where all we have to do is put in our prompts, and I may include a special short 10 minutes or so on the envelope construction between now and Christmas Day. Any questions you have, I'm happy to answer them in the comment section, as well as don't forget that you need to go to Meg Journal's link in the show notes to get a copy of the prompts. I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope that you learned something. Thanks for joining me. God bless you. See you real soon.